comic books made more sense. You know it is fictitious without pretense.
Hello, I'm on a Superman hype, so today I thought I'd take a look at another Superman digest. This is Superman Battles Weird Villains. This is DC, the best of DC, number 54. These digests ran from the late 70s into the early 80s. And what digests were, of course, were smaller size comics packed with, this has about maybe 100 pages or so. And let me see, actually, 98 pages or so of old reprints, but they were meant to be sold at drugstores, grocery stores, convenience stores, on racks, close to the cashier, as impulse buys. And you routinely see them nowadays as Archie comics. Archie never lost that foothold. Marvel and DC did. DC was big into this format. To give you an example of the size, this is a regular size comic, and this is about how big a digest would be. So kids would buy these and read these on a Sunday afternoon or something like that. I know I would. DC was big into these things around the time of the best of DC digests. A lot of them were Superman related because the Christopher Reeve Superman movies were really big. This issue, the cover art is by Ed Hannigan and Klaus Janson. Here is Superman fighting Bizarro with characters like the two Toymen here and Gorilla Grodd cheering on. And on the back is some advertisement for the actual book itself, with all the different stories that we're going to go through. Here's Solomon Grundy. Here's a version of Metallo. Here's Mxyzptlk. So let's get into it here. Usually there was a table of contents showing you everything that's in here. And these are great for like road trips too. Back in the day, we didn't have tablets and smartphones and stuff to watch cartoons on. You just read comics, right? So this story is Mxyzptlk spelled backwards, is Trouble. It's from Superman 335 from 1979. And here's a splash page previewing what the story is going to be about. And here is Superman and Lois having a heart-to-heart conversation. Lois dates Superman, but not Clark Kent, and still doesn't know that Superman's Clark Kent. And Superman's like, oh, if I tell you my identity and everything, people are going to come after you and stuff. And she's like, people come after me now. I don't know what your problem is. And he's like, you know what? Let me give you superpowers and then you'll be safe, right? So he flies off to do that. Meanwhile, there's a fire in like one of these rotating restaurants. That used to be a thing back in the day. I guess people still have that, where there's a rotating restaurant where you could see the city in all different angles as you're eating. He rigs it so that rotating thing is a rotating sprinkler and puts out the fire. Meanwhile, Mxyzptlk on his own fifth dimension, I like the fact that he's a criminal there. They keep arresting him for bad jokes and things, and he gets banished to Earth because they don't want to deal with him anymore. And even if he says his name backwards, he still can't get back to the fifth dimension. So Mxyzptlk tries to get Superman's attention by turning this helicopter into an egg beater. And he always endangers human lives this way. Meanwhile, Superman tried to get an antidote for, not an antidote, like a way to make Lois Lane have his powers. And so there's this superpowered lizard that he has in his menagerie in the Fortress of Solitude. Now there's an alarm that something's wrong, and the lizard bites Superman. Because it's superpowered, it can puncture him. And that venom is slowly transforming Superman into a lizard. So here he is. And so he confronts Mxyzptlk as a lizard. He says, bring me back to my fifth dimension. Superman doesn't really know how, but he's like, I'll do it if you turn me back to a human. And Mxyzptlk doesn't like that. He turns the galaxy planet, the galaxy, it used to be the daily planet. He turns it into a building full of, like, made of newspapers, and everyone falls through. It's the Galaxy Building. It's now a TV studio, and Superman then feigns anger and says, like, you endangered those lives. He saves them, of course, and scares Mxyzptlk, and so Mxyzptlk is like, fine, I will turn you back into a human. So he does. Superman doesn't know how to bring him to the fifth dimension, but doing the good deed brings him back. And the guy's like, that's right. The spell I banished you with contained a return clause, providing for your immediate return to Zerf, which is where they are, if you atoned for your misdeeds by doing a good turn. So there you go. He had to get back in time to marry his fiance. He does, and then she turns into this, and everyone laughs because the joke's on him, right? This character, I think, inspired the one that was in the Superman animated series in the 90s. It's not the same character, but it's this idea of, like, he's with a shapely, hot woman, So next up is a DC Comics Presents story from number 8, where it's Superman and Swamp Thing, but also Solomon Grundy, and it's called The 60 Deaths of Solomon Grundy. So in a previous issue, there was swamp water that went into the sewer, and now it's creating a bunch of Solomon Grundys. Meanwhile, Swamp Thing wants to turn human, and he goes to Metropolis and encounters Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy is super duper powered, and he can rival Superman. So he slams Superman and knocks him unconscious. And Swamp Thing's like, okay, he's fine, but like he's alive, but he's unconscious. So they go off. Swamp Thing also loses his arm. Superman rips it off. So they work together. Swamp Thing wants to create an antidote for his condition. Takes cells from Solomon Grundy. But at some point, he realizes that Solomon Grundy is not really alive. No, duh. I thought we all knew that. Here's another Solomon Grundy in the background, sort of teasing what's to come. So Superman is at Star. He's recovering and everything. Star Labs, and he's getting he's fixing things up with Lois. I don't know how I feel about Superman and Lois dating and her not knowing that he's Clark Kent. That's kind of weird. But that was what it was in the late 70s here. So Solomon Grundy is on the attack. Superman fights him. As I say, Solomon Grundy is as powerful as Superman. So that's cool. I like this whole thing with the wind up here. This was written by Steve Englehart and penciled and inked by Murphy Anderson. So that's neat. So there's soon to be more than one Solomon Grundy, and they all come up out of the sewers here. And here Swamp Thing is recounting how he became Swamp Thing. So Superman then thwarts all these Solomon Grundys. They all die, basically. So he does kill them, but like they say, well, they're not really alive, right? And Swamp Thing realizes that he can't turn human here, so he walks away. And Superman's like, maybe I'll be able to help him someday. Yeah, with all your technology in the Fortress of Solitude, etc. And that's the end of that. Next up is Gorilla Grodd's Grandstand Play. This is from Action Comics, number 424 from 1973. This is written by Elliot S. Maggin and penciled by Curt Swan with inks by Murphy Anderson. So we'll see some classic Curt Swan Superman here. Now, on the Ape City, Sullivar is the leader. Grodd is their criminal prisoner, and Grodd creates an illusion with his mind powers that their secret city is now exposed to everyone. So Sullivar then goes to the UN and talks about negotiations and what he wants from the world now that he's exposed. Sullivar liked this white shock of hair that he always had. Yeah, Ape City. That comes from a time when there was this whole notion in comics that if you put an ape on the cover, it'll sell. That's probably because Planet of the Apes and stuff. And apes, I guess, were fascinating or something. I don't know. Meanwhile, Grodd goes to the UN, attacks it. They think there's an earthquake, and Superman fights Grodd. They fight all over the place. Grodd throws Superman into like a boat. Superman then, realizing that Grodd's a Flash villain usually, uses something from Flash's playbook and creates like a whirlwind to trap Gorilla Grodd. But Gorilla Grodd says, well, I could just stomp and like dissipate this whirlwind. Then there's a whole like water spout that he sort of flies on. I don't get how that happens. And he throws Superman, he defeats him, so Superman is dying. And it's like, I'm afraid Superman's dying. No, I can't believe it. So Sullivar then attacks Gorilla Grodd. And meanwhile, Superman's being put away in a stretcher. And Sullivar is beating up Grodd and defeats him. And Clark's here, so we know as readers that Superman's probably fine. But so Sullivar is like, listen, I pledged to throw a great funeral for Superman, and I've defeated Grodd, I'm awesome. And then Superman comes and said, Sullivar, should I call you who you really are, Grodd? And then he fights Sullivar, and everyone's like, what are you doing? Sullivar's a great guy. He came to the UN. He's awesome. But Superman reveals that Grodd has been controlling Sullivar, created this staged thing. Superman faked his death so that he could be out of the picture and see what the hell he was up to. And he came back. Superman can slow his heart down and whatnot. And then he defeats Grodd, defeats Grodd's hold over Sullivar. And so they, Sullivar imprisons Grodd in Gorilla City once again. So Superman repairs the UN building, and Sullivar then makes a big speech to humanity for peace and all this stuff. And that's about it. And more shenanigans with Clark Kent and Lois Lane. I hope you meant all those things you said. Yeah, so like Lois went to Clark for support and comfort when she thought Superman was dead. And Lois is like, look, Clark, we're friends, just friends. And there can only be one man in my life, understand? Because I'm an idiot and I'm written like an idiot. So anyway, and he's like, well, if that's the way you want it, Lois. And then he starts laughing. This really goes to the whole super dickery thing. I don't know why. I get that there was probably an edict in editorial that he should never reveal that he's Superman, keep that fairy tale going. But at a certain point, it doesn't make any sense, and everyone looks stupid as a result. All right. So here's Target of the Toyman. So this is from Action Comics number 432 from 1974, and this involves someone stealing the Toyman identity, and the old Toyman coming out of retirement and fighting him. So this is the first appearance of the Jack Nimble Toyman, and that's this guy here. But he's dressed as an old version of Toyman, and that's the design they used in Super Friends. So Toyman attacks an airport with like chocolate fudge and all sorts of stuff. Toyman is back in town, and Superman's like, he's not the same Toyman I used to tangle with. The original was older, fatter, and more experienced. Looks like this newcomer is cashing in on an old master's style. So this Toyman fights Superman with exploding balloons, and they blow up stuff. And Superman gathers them all and explodes them in space. And the old Toyman isn't amused by any of this. So he's like, I gotta get back out there and fight this guy. So the old Toyman confronts the new Toyman. And he's got all sorts of gadgets and stuff. And he defeats him. So that's cool. But then they team up. So now they're like, they're this dynamic duo of evil, right? And Superman, is around, shrunken down, by Toyman's one of Toyman's shrink rays. And the new Toyman betrays the old Toyman and almost kills him. And Superman comes back and defeats the new Toyman. I found this sort of cruel in that I don't think that the new Toyman has bouncy powers. He's just bouncing a human being. It's like I have a new game called Dribble the Toyman until he passes out cold. So anyway, so that happens. Superman releases the old Toyman, and they reveal that they teamed up to fight this guy. And he's like, a million thanks, Superman, for giving an old reformed crook one last chance to prove himself. He's like, and thank you, Winslow, for being on the side of the law at long last. So that's cool. That's a neat little story. And this is The Man with the Kryptonite Heart. This is from Superman 310 from 1977. It's the first appearance of the Roger Corbin Metallo, not to be confused with the John Corbin Metallo. So there's a lot of passing of the baton here, but you get to see the old characters as well. So here's Superman fighting Skull. And I like Skull a lot. They were a Bronze Age gang that Superman fought. And they shoot him, and all sorts of stuff happens. There's an avalanche that nearly kills one of their Skull agents. Superman is not impressed by that. You endangered one of your own, etc. I'll have him out from under there in seconds. His body's crushed, but he's still breathing just barely. So they try to revive him and stuff. And more shenanigans with Lombard here, Steve Lombard, who's a blowhard a-hole bully of Clark Kent. Steve Lombard steals a camera from the Galaxy building, and he's going to investigate Skull himself. So they shoot him and capture him. And here, Clark and Lois are talking. And so they're dating, but Lois didn't tell Clark that she's leaving Metropolis, and so they're having a little spat here. Meanwhile, Lombard is captured. Superman then tries to go rescue that guy, but when he gets there, there's a new Metallo in town. So Skull took that crushed person, which was a Corbin, and turned him into a new Metallo. Now, at this time, kryptonite didn't really exist in this universe. It was all turned to iron, but they reveal, oh, it's a synthetic kryptonite. And it's like, it's one of those things, they wrote this so that they could get away from those old tropes, but then they come back anyway somehow, right? So they have this big fight. It's pretty cool. Lots of kicking. Superman does this a lot where he's on the ground and he does like 2 donkey kicks, right? Corbin like bats Superman into bleachers here. It's pretty neat stuff. So he also has like an air skiff, which is pretty cool. So they reveal that they took the crushed body and made him into Metallo. It's like, whatever. They could just say that in one panel. So Superman fights this new Metallo with these kryptonite rays, etc. And Superman finally defeats Metallo by knocking him out and then sealing the kryptonite heart shut so that it doesn't shoot like kryptonite rays at him, and rescues Steve Lombard. Anyways, before all this, Clark had locked Lois in his bathroom and sealed it shut with his eye lasers. So that's not a good move, and she's pretty miffed about that, so she leaves. And of course, they all think that Metallo's dead, but he's not. He comes back. And this one is Happy New Year, Rest in Peace. This is from Superman 333 from 1979. This is Bizarro. And this is a classic version of Bizarro I like, where he's from Bizarro world with all sorts of Bizarro versions of people. This is Bizarro Morgan Edge. This is the only appearance that guy has. And here's Bizarro with his Bizarro #1 medallion. They see a future where Lois and Lana Lang die, so he flies to Earth to save them. And he goes into this plane. Morgan Edge is throwing this New Year's Eve bash where they're flying to different time zones and celebrating the New Year's in each time zone. It's really weird, but so Superman has to fight Bizarro here and not give away his secret identity. And the thing is, Bizarro knows Superman's identity, so he's like, so you no got to worry about Clark Kent. See him am really, and then Superman's, I'll tell you what Clark am really, Bizarro. And then he punches him. He keeps patching up the plane every time, and he does a lot of contrivances where he's changing from Superman back to, Clark, etc. He seals off the plane at one point so that they can't see what he's doing. And then he recounts how Bizarro came to be. He was cloned from a clone machine and imperfectly duplicated, and then he got powers from like some sort of meteor shower and stuff. And the meteor shower gave him opposite powers from Superman. So like instead of eye lasers, it's freeze lasers, and instead of cold breath, it's fire breath, and stuff like that. He's a pretty fun character. Here, Lois and Lana Lang are, talking about their love of Superman, etc. So Bizarro punches Superman back in time, and Superman goes forward in time, but he realizes that he didn't punch him back in time, punched him forward in time, and this is what the future looks like, I guess. So now he has to go back in time. It's a whole thing. Finally, Superman realizes that Bizarro is not here to save Lana and Lois. When he says save, everything's the opposite. He's here to kill them. So he rigs it. He makes a diorama in 2 seconds because he's Superman, and plants it on the plane, showing that they're already dead. So then Superman uses reverse psychology and says, "You've saved my friends beautifully, Bizarro, by killing them. How can I ever thank you?" And Bizarro's like, "No mention it, Superman. You am welcome. Now that mission am accomplished, me go home." So he leaves. So then the plane lands safely and everything. Superman reveals his plan and all that stuff. Superman says he saved her for the umpteenth time. You had to come close to getting killed before I remembered how much you mean to me. So, after Lois and Lana had previously talked about their love of Superman, Lana witnesses Superman saying, "I love you" to Lois, and then they kiss, and then she walks away. And then Superman flies off, and Lois is like, go show someone you care. I'll still be waiting for you when you get there. And she's talking about how Superman saves people because he wants people to know that someone out there cares. He makes a speech about that in this issue. And there you have the digest. Lots of great classic villain fights here. You've got Mxyzptlk, you've got Grundy, Gorilla Grodd, Toyman, two Toymen. You've got the Corbin Metallo, and you've got Bizarro. I mean, it's a great little. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, Superman digest you can get. Here's a Star Trek DC Comics advertisement here. Great art. DC Comics Star Trek was pretty cool. And there you have it. Superman battles weird villains. I hope some or all of these villains make it into DC movies. I mean, they haven't even done a Brainiac in live action. So Superman has a lot of great rogues. People forget that. So I hope to see a lot of that in exciting action in movies and television and stuff down the road. Until then, we always have the comics. So I hope you had fun going through this with me. Take care.